Breaking news. Nigel Farage has forced an emergency debate that left Prime Minister Keir Starmer politically exposed on the floor of Parliament. What unfolded at 2:47 this afternoon sent shockwaves well beyond Westminster and has fundamentally altered the trajectory of British politics. The events of the day have raised serious questions about Labour's prospects at the next general election, and what followed may be remembered as the moment Britain's political establishment visibly fractured. Understanding what happened now is critical because the consequences of the next 72 hours could reshape the country's future. The crisis was triggered earlier today when Nigel Farage rose in the House of Commons and invoked Standing Order 24, a rarely used parliamentary mechanism that compels an immediate emergency debate on a matter deemed to be of urgent national importance. The chamber fell silent. Labour MPs appeared stunned because this was not a routine policy challenge or a disagreement over public spending. Farage's motion went directly to the Prime Minister's integrity. In measured but stark language, he called for the House to debate the Prime Minister's fitness to govern, citing what he described as credible evidence that Mr. Starmer had knowingly misled Parliament over foreign interference in British immigration policy. The emphasis on the word knowingly resonated across the chamber. Rather than stepping back, the Prime Minister responded immediately, a decision that many observers now view as a grave tactical error. Mr. Starmer rose to his feet, visibly angry, his face flushed, his composure faltering. Addressing the House, he dismissed Mr. Farage as a purveyor of conspiracy theories and insisted there was no evidence to support the claims being made. His voice, at times cracking with frustration, framed the motion as a desperate maneuver by a party he said would never govern Britain. The attack was direct and personal, but it failed to have the intended effect. Mr. Farage remained calm, holding a folder of documents. He responded methodically, telling the House he was in possession of papers obtained through Freedom of Information requests that he said painted a very different picture. He challenged the Prime Minister to explain why his office had met European Union migration officials 17 times in the past 6 months, why those meetings had not been disclosed to Parliament, and why leaked emails fuzz appeared to show discussions about migration quotas that were never announced to the British public. The reaction was immediate. Conservative MPs cheered. Labour benches sat in silence, and within minutes, the Speaker granted the emergency debate. By 3:12 p.m., the process was formally underway, and it was clear the Prime Minister had walked into a political trap. Beyond Westminster, the debate struck a raw nerve across the country. As Parliament descended into confrontation, many British pensioners who spent decades working and contributing to the system continue to struggle to heat their homes. In Sunderland yesterday, 71-year-old widow Margaret Wilson was interviewed outside a food bank. Her husband served in the Falklands and she worked as an NHS nurse for 38 years. She said she is now forced to choose between heating and eating while accommodation is provided to people arriving illegally in the UK. Her words delivered through tears have been echoed by many who feel abandoned by the state they once supported. At the same time, leaked Home Office figures indicate that accommodation for migrants is costing millions of pounds a day, providing heated rooms, meals, medical care, legal assistance, and cash allowances that critics argue exceed the support available to some British pensioners. The contrast has fueled widespread anger, including among traditional Labour voters. A poll released this morning suggests a large majority of the public believes the government is more concerned with appearing compassionate internationally than protecting citizens at home, reinforcing a sense that the social contract has been badly damaged. Official data further underlines the strain. The Department for Work and Pensions recorded 127,000 applications for winter fuel support last month alone, a dramatic increase on last year. These figures sit uneasily alongside reports that the Home Office approved a substantial late-night contract for new migrant accommodation in hotels across southern England, a decision that has drawn sharp criticism from within Parliament itself. Discontent is now evident even among Labour's most loyal supporters. Long-standing voters have publicly expressed their sense of betrayal, describing a party they believe has lost sight of who it represents. For many, this no longer feels like political theatre, but a profound emotional rupture. Then, in a move that stunned observers, events took an unexpected constitutional turn. At 4:23 p.m., during a reception for Commonwealth diplomats at Buckingham Palace, King Charles delivered remarks that departed from the approved script. Speaking about democratic values, he emphasized the importance of truth, transparency, and trust between those who govern and the governed, warning that when such trust is compromised, the foundations of the constitutional monarchy itself are put at risk. Palace sources indicate these lines were added personally by the king and were widely interpreted as a pointed reference to the unfolding crisis at Westminster. Constitutional experts described it as one of the most significant royal interventions in decades. The economic impact was swift. By early evening, sterling had fallen sharply against the dollar. Billions were wiped off the FETs. 100 international investors signaled concern about Britain's political stability. Inside the Labour Party, tensions escalated rapidly. Private messaging groups reportedly filled with talk of catastrophe and leadership challenges. Several junior ministers sought urgent meetings not about policy, but about the party's future. Senior figures can-led media appearances and speculation mounted about resignations. Public reactions spilled onto the streets. Large spontaneous protests took place in cities including Manchester, Birmingham, and Newcastle, drawing thousands of people, many of them pensioners and veterans demanding accountability. These demonstrations were not organized by political parties, but emerged organically, a sign of deep and widespread frustration. International leaders also took notice. Cautiously worded but pointed comments from Paris, Brussels, and Washington highlighted concern about Britain's ability to provide stable leadership for a country long regarded as a model of constitutional continuity. The shift in global perception was stark. Within Downing Street, the mood has been described as frantic. Reports speak of heated arguments, emergency contingency planning, and growing unease about the Prime Minister's position. Sources say Mr. Starmer appeared shaken as he left the Commons, his confidence visibly diminished. Further revelations have intensified the pressure. According to reports citing leaked documents, the Prime Minister's office may have received detailed briefings from EU officials months ago regarding coordinated refugee distribution plans. Despite public denials that any such agreements existed, if verified, this would raise serious questions about whether Parliament was misled, a matter with profound constitutional implications. Adding to the gravity of the situation is the fact that the initial freedom of information requests were not filed by political operatives but by a retired civil servant who became concerned about inconsistencies in official statements. His findings, later taken up by Mr. Farage's team, have played a central role in bringing the issue to the fore. As Labour struggles to contain the fallout, Nigel Farage has adopted a market-kidly, restrained tone in public appearances, presenting himself as calm and assured. New polling suggests a dramatic realignment in voter support with reform. UK registering unprecedented levels of backing and Labour suffering a sharp decline. Looking ahead, the stakes could scarcely be higher. Parliament reconvenes tomorrow morning as the emergency debate continues, with the possibility that further documents will be formally introduced. There is growing speculation about a potential motion of no confidence, and in extreme circumstances even the role of the monarch should parliamentary confidence be lost. Britain is now watching a political crisis unfold in real time, with outcomes that remain deeply uncertain. Whether this marks the end of Starmer's leadership or the beginning of a dramatic attempt at recovery will become clearer in the hours ahead. What is beyond doubt is that this episode will be studied for decades as a moment when trust in British governance was tested to its limits, and the consequences of that test are still being written. As the country braces for the next phase of this unfolding drama, attention is now firmly fixed on what happens inside the Commons when proceedings resume. Senior parliamentary figures privately acknowledge that tomorrow's session could determine not only the survival of the government, but the stability of Britain's wider constitutional order. If the documents referenced during the emergency debate are formally presented and authenticated, pressure on the Prime Minister from within his own party is expected to become overwhelming. Several Labour MPs have already indicated anonymously that continued support would be untenable if it is shown that Parliament was misled regardless of party loyalty or political consequence. There is also growing discussion among constitutional scholars about scenarios that have not been seriously contemplated for generations. While the monarch's role is strictly limited and exercised with extreme caution, the loss of parliamentary confidence in a sitting Prime Minister midterm would trigger protocols rarely invoked in modern times. Palace officials are said to be reviewing contingency procedures as a matter of prudence, underscoring the severity of the moment rather than signaling any predetermined outcome. For Starmer personally, the damage may already be irreversible. Allies concede that his response in the chamber